My Weird School. Fast Facts. Geography. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Pelot. Chapter 4. Water. Oceans. Oceans are cool because you can swim and surf and boogie board and collect seashells and buy cotton candy and go on rides. One summer, my family rented a beach house and we went to the boardwalk, and I ate so much candy and popcorn and saltwater taffy that I got sick to my stomach. It was the greatest day of my life. Although eating junk food has nothing to do with the ocean, the important fast fact to know is that water covers more than 2/3 of the planet. I knew that, but did you know this? The reason there are tides in the ocean is because of the moon. Isn't that weird? Why should the moon have anything to do with tides? Well, I'll tell you. Just like we have gravity on Earth, the moon has gravity too. When the moon is overhead, the water in our oceans is pulled toward it. The water on Earth is attracted by the moon's gravity, so the water level in the oceans rises and falls every 12 hours. Your parents are probably going to tell you there are 4 oceans: the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian, and the Arctic. But they're wrong. A few years ago, the International Hydrographic Organization, which is a fancy name for the people in charge of oceans, decided that there are really 5 oceans. The 5th ocean is called the Southern Ocean. It includes the waters around Antarctica. Some people call it the Antarctic Ocean, just to make things even more confusing. Actually, there is really just one big ocean. If you look at a globe, you'll see that all the oceans are connected in one way or another. Those bits of land we call continents just get in the way. How deep are the oceans? On average, they're about 12,000 feet deep. That might not mean much to you, but 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So the oceans are more than 2 miles deep. That's deep. Of course, some parts of the ocean are much deeper and some are more shallow. If there weren't shallow parts, you couldn't stand up in the ocean and dig your toes into the sandy bottom. The lowest point on Earth is a valley in the Pacific Ocean's Mariana Trench called Challenger Deep. It's 36,000 feet deep. That's almost 7 miles. Just to give you an idea of how big that is, if you picked up Mount Everest and dunked it into Challenger Deep, its peak would still be more than a mile underwater. Of course, the tough part would be picking up Mount Everest in the first place. The Pacific is the biggest of all the oceans by far. It covers almost 1/3 of the Earth's surface. It's 15 times bigger than the United States, and it has tons of islands, 20,000 to 30,000 of them. Nobody really knows the exact number for sure. Some of them are tiny volcanic islands where nothing can grow, so no people live there. It would be cool to live on an island with no people. But then, of course, if you lived there, it wouldn't be an island with no people anymore. The Atlantic Ocean isn't nearly as big as the Pacific, but it's getting bigger. Because the tectonic plates in the Earth are constantly moving, they're pushing the continents apart. The Atlantic is expanding at the rate of about 1 inch every year. At some point, it will take longer to fly from the United States to Europe. It might be a few million years, but my dad told me you can save a lot of money by booking flights in advance. Here's another one to ask your parents. What is the longest mountain range on Earth? Give up? It's the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It's an underwater mountain chain that runs down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is 10,000 miles long. It stretches all the way from the Arctic Ocean to the southern tip of Africa. That's one mountain range that you probably don't want to ski down. It's really hard to ski underwater. Of course, you could water ski above it. The Gulf Stream is sort of like a giant river that flows through the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It's warmer than the rest of the ocean, and it moves from Florida up the east coast and then all the way across the ocean to Europe. Without the Gulf Stream, northern Europe would be a lot colder than it is. You'll never believe who mapped out and named the Gulf Stream. It was Benjamin Franklin. Lakes. Lakes are different from oceans, and not just because they're smaller. A lake is a body of water that is completely surrounded by land. Every continent has lakes, even Antarctica. Do you like swimming in lakes? If so, you should go to Finland. It has more than 185,000 of them. That's a lot of lakes. There have been lakes that were formed when a bunch of guys with bulldozers dug big holes in the ground. But mostly, the lakes on our planet were formed naturally. You may have noticed that most of North America's lakes are in the northern part of the continent. Like, there are zillions of lakes in Canada. About 20,000 years ago, during the last ice age, glaciers from Canada started to slip and slide their way south. The moving ice cut into the ground, creating valleys and carrying rock away. When the glaciers started to melt, they turned into lakes and rivers. That's how America's Great Lakes were formed. Can you name all 5 of the Great Lakes? Most people can't. Here's a little trick. Think of the word homes. Each letter is the start of one of the Great Lakes. Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. Or you could use the words Shimo, Meos, or Show Me. Most lakes have fresh water, the kind that most plants, animals, and humans need to live. Of all the water on Earth, only about 2.5% of it is fresh water, and most of that is frozen or deep underground. That means we can use only 1% of the Earth's water. That's kind of scary when you think about all the things we do with water. We drink it. We clean ourselves with it. We water our lawns and wash our cars with it. We fill our water balloons with it. Do you and your friends ever have water balloon jousts? Water balloon jousting is the coolest sport ever, especially when you joust on bikes. One time we were having a water balloon joust on the grassy field next to our school. My friend Alexia and I were the knights. We got on our bikes at opposite ends of the field. Arlo, you're getting off topic again. The point is that we don't have a lot of fresh water. If you could put all Earth's water in a 1-gallon jug, the fresh water available to humans would be about 1 tablespoon. Thank you, little Miss Know-It-All. But here's something you don't know. Lakes are a lot like pretzels. You can get them with or without salt. The Dead Sea sits on the border of Israel and Jordan. It's not dead and it's not a sea, so I don't know why it's called the Dead Sea. It's a lake, and it's almost 6 times saltier than an ocean. You don't want to drink the water because it tastes really yucky. Like most lakes, the Dead Sea is fed by rivers and streams that come down from the mountains around it. Those waters carry mineral salts. But there aren't any rivers or streams moving water out of the Dead Sea. The only water leaving is by evaporation. And in that hot, sunny climate, it evaporates like crazy. Do you know what water leaves behind when it evaporates? Salt, of course. That's why it's so salty. The coolest thing about the Dead Sea is that you can float in it even if you don't know how to swim. You couldn't drown if you tried. It's even hard to keep your legs on the bottom because they keep wanting to float to the surface. There's another salt lake right here in America. It's called the Great Salt Lake, which is the perfect name. It's in Utah. Rivers. Do you know why the Nile is the longest river in the world? Because it goes on for Niles and Niles and Niles. That's the oldest joke in the book. They probably told it in ancient Egypt. If you don't believe me, you're in denial. Or you're in the Nile. One or the other. Get it? Are you quite finished with your little jokes, Arlo? People need to know that the Nile is 4,241 miles, and it runs through northeast Africa. It starts as two rivers, one in the mountains in East Africa and one in the tropics of Central Africa, and flows into the Mediterranean Sea. One of the greatest civilizations in the world, ancient Egypt, came to life on the banks of the Nile. Even today, more than 9 out of 10 Egyptians live within a few miles of the river. The Amazon River in South America flows from the mountains of Peru through the rainforest in Brazil. It isn't as long as the Nile, but it's so wide that in some places it looks like a large lake. The Amazon carries more water than the world's next 10 biggest rivers combined. Every second, it empties nearly 57 million gallons of water into the Atlantic Ocean. Quick, what's the longest river in the United States? No, it's not the Mississippi. Nice try. The longest river in the United States is the Missouri, which is 2,540 miles long. That's about 200 miles longer than the Mississippi.